the racing, the big one, the camping. It's all just bigger at Talladega. And with a doubleheader on Saturday and a cup race on Sunday, it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
But one thing for sure, it's always thrilling.
And as they go across the stripe, a photo finish!
NASCAR's biggest and baddest track is back. Get your tickets now at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com.
Roll Tide and welcome to this Wednesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. This is Roger Hoover. Great to be with you from our studios in Tuscaloosa. A day early this week because on Thursday at 2 o'clock, when we normally have the show, it'll be Alabama playing men's basketball against Texas A&M Corpus Christi in Birmingham. So we wanted to come on a day early and have these great interviews ahead for you with Greg Byrne, Nate Oats, and Brad Bohannon. We'll start to go through all of our headlines today thanks to our friends at RJ Young. RJ Young is the official technology solutions provider of Crimson Drive. They've given us a smart board so we can go through everything coming up on the show today. Plus, they sponsor our headlines. But first things first, we'll have a conversation with Greg Byrne, as he always joins us once a month to talk about Alabama athletics. So the director of athletics will join us not only to talk about the Crimson Tide athletics, but his role on the men's basketball selection committee for the NCAA. Then we'll take a look back to Monday night as we had a baseball conversation with Brad Bohannon previewing Alabama against Florida. And then Nate Oats joined us at the restaurant. A really fun conversation after the SEC tournament victory and looking ahead to the NCAA tournament. Looking through the rest of the headlines, we start with the men's basketball team for good reason. The Crimson Tide winning the SEC Tournament Championship in Nashville over the weekend. Alabama is the #1 overall seed for the NCAA tournament, and on Thursday it'll be a first-round matchup against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They defeated Southeast Missouri State in the first four in Dayton earlier in the week, so Texas A&M Corpus Christi will be the opponent. Coming up on Thursday, our radio coverage will start at 12:45 across the network, starting for that 1:45 game in Birmingham against Corpus Christi. Also, we got some good news yesterday, and bittersweet news really. Charlie Henry has been named the head coach of Georgia Southern. We're thrilled for Charlie Henry getting that opportunity to lead Georgia Southern's programs, and he's been at Nate Oats' side throughout all of this run that Nate Oats has had here in Tuscaloosa so far as a great assistant coach, really responsible for the defensive intensity that Alabama plays with. So we hate to see him go, but we know that good things are in store for Charlie Henry as the head coach at Georgia Southern, and we look forward to him coaching Alabama for hopefully 6 more games. Crimson Tide women's basketball team. It's been a long layoff for Christy Curry's team, but they were selected to the NCAA tournament on Sunday night. Alabama will be the #10 seed in Seattle Regional 3. So the Crimson Tide will start play in the big dance coming up on Saturday against the #7 seed Baylor Bears. That game will tip off at 4:30 p.m. Central from Storrs, Connecticut. Yes, UConn is the host of these first 2 rounds of the Seattle Regional 3. So if Alabama wins on Saturday, would play on Monday, likely against Connecticut, as UConn will take on Vermont in a Northeast battle coming up on Saturday. But UConn is the host school, and we wish the best for Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide coming up in the NCAA tournament. To the Diamond, Alabama baseball and softball had the entire state covered last night. Baseball defeated South Alabama, softball defeated North Alabama. So really good work there for Brad Bohannon and Patrick Murphy. Now this weekend, SEC play is starting for both of those teams. The baseball team will play Thursday through Saturday at Florida against the second-ranked Florida Gators, and then the softball team will be at home this weekend against Arkansas, a great team from a year ago. So really excited to see what's coming up for Alabama baseball and softball on the Diamond. Same can be said on the mat for gymnastics. It's time for the SEC championships, and Alabama will be in the evening session coming up on Saturday from Duluth, Georgia. You can watch on the SEC network. Great win last week for the Crimson Tide on senior night against Boise State. The men's tennis team, George Husak's team, also claimed a big victory against #16 Florida, and if you want to come to campus, you can watch tennis perform on Saturday here in Tuscaloosa as well. Then swimming and diving today, starting its run at the NCAA championships on the women's side. You'll hear Greg Byrne talk about that coming up in just a moment. But he is our first interview today, as we always talk with the Director of Athletics, Greg Byrne, once a month here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network, not only on issues concerning Alabama athletics, but looking at his role as well on the NCAA Men's Basketball Selection Committee. Here's our monthly conversation with Greg Byrne. Congratulations and Roll Tide to you, because you're one of the handful of athletic directors that has a men's and women's team participating in the big dance. Roll Tide.
Yeah, obviously on Sunday, I was actually flying back from Indianapolis, and we had just got done with the selection process for the men. And when I was in the airport in Indy, the men's show came on. And then when I was on my flight from Indy to Atlanta, women's show came on. So I was sitting there with everybody else when it got unveiled that the women were headed to Connecticut to play Baylor in the first round. And so I was excited for that, and obviously very excited for the men to have a chance to obviously be the number 1 overall seed for the first time in our program's history. And then to be able to play in Birmingham is a great opportunity for our program, our fans, and it's really, really special.
I know you hated being away from Nashville with your role in the selection committee that we'll talk about in just a moment, but how about what you saw on television or heard from your staff about how many Alabama fans made it to Nashville? Coach Oats on Hey Coach talked about what a great home court advantage it felt like, and that's something he really wants to see coming up on Thursday as well in Birmingham.
Yeah, I obviously really thrilled for our team to be able to play in that type of environment. I had a feeling, even going back to 2020 when we won the SEC tournament and the regular season as well. That was a great crowd in Nashville, considering the circumstances. I think out of the fans that were able to go to the game, it was heavily weighted towards Alabama, which was great, and was anticipating that as well for the SEC tournament. Heard we had a good crowd on Friday, had a really good crowd on Saturday, and I was in the NCAA basketball men's committee selection room, and you are allowed to have your iPad with the game on in there. So I had my iPad on, I had my AirPod in, and was watching the game, and they're very, I can't tell you how strict they are about, I can't be wearing an A. I can't have, I had a NCAA Final Four pullover on, but I may have given a couple of fist pumps in the room when Alabama was doing well. But one of the things I really admire about the whole men's basketball committee, and I'm sure it's the same for the women's committee, how strict they are and how committed they are to making sure that you're in there and you're staying focused on the task at hand, but they do give you a little at least flexibility to watch your game a little bit and know what's going on with it. And I could hear through my AirPod the crowd and the environment. So even there, sitting up there in Indy in a conference room, that was fun to see and fun to be a part of.
Really special for sure for the Crimson Tide. And you mentioned your role on the selection committee on the men's side. If you could just kind of tell us the work that you were able to do throughout the year getting ready for this past week, and then everything that went on this past week in Indianapolis being part of the selection committee.
Yeah, I'm honored to be a part of it. Actually, here on the other side of my office, there's a picture of myself and a guy named Tom Jernstead. Most people don't know who Tom is or was. He unfortunately passed away of a heart attack in 2020. And Tom was one of my mentors. He came to a couple Alabama games with Regina and I, which we were thrilled to have him here. And Tom, really what the Final Four is today, he worked for the NCAA for 38 years, and he was on the championship side. He wasn't on any of the legislative or enforcement or anything like that. He was on that side of the shop and built the Final Four from being in small arenas to large arenas to domes in the corner to center of the dome. And so when Greg Sankey asked me to serve on the men's basketball committee, it was a real honor to get to be a part of that. And so I love all of our sports, and I've got the picture of all of them behind me on purpose to remind me of that on a daily basis when we're making decisions. But the men's basketball committee was something that I had aspirations for. And to be able to do that is quite an honor. So what basically in the Reader's Digest version of it is there's 12 of us on the committee, and then you have NCAA staff on top of that. And so the 12 are represented geographically and by conference. Each of the Autonomy 5 conferences have a representative on it. And then all the other conferences will nominate people, and they're selected for a 5-year appointment. So it's a long appointment. So this is my second of 5 years on it. And so you get assigned to conferences as a primary or as a secondary. So every Division I conference has an NCAA basketball committee member assigned to it. And like this year, I was the primary for the Big East. And then I was I was primary for a couple of AQ leagues, which are automatic qualifiers. Most of the time are one bid leagues. And then I was secondary for some other ones as well, including the Big Ten. So you have to keep up to date on what's going on with those conferences the best that you can. And when it comes to committee time, you're there to report on what you've learned from the conference, what you've learned from watching games, which we have a program called Synergy that I can watch a game in about 20 minutes. And you get a feel. And then, obviously in my role at Alabama, I get to see some of the teams that are in person that are going to get talked about outside of the SEC. For instance, Memphis this year, right? When they came to Coleman, I went and saw Michigan State and Alabama in Portland on Thanksgiving Day. So, I was able to talk about what I saw from a basketball standpoint with those teams. And so when you go through that, you make your reports through the year. And then last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago, we have a Zoom and we go through our conferences one more time. And we have weekly meetings and things like that, but we go through our conference our monitoring reports. And then we all reported in Indianapolis on Wednesday morning. I think I went up Tuesday and we had a dinner Tuesday night and then Wednesday morning. So basically Wednesday until Sunday, you're in that conference room most of the time. You're going through there are multiple steps that you're going through, some of the business operation of it, but a lot of it is when you start working through the seeding or the teams that get in, and then you start working on seeding, and then you start working on bracketing. Okay. It is a fluid process all the way until Sunday and Sunday morning and Saturday night and Sunday morning. I think we were in there till midnight on Saturday night, Sunday morning. And you're going through there and you're talking about, okay, if this is what's happened in the conference tournaments, here's what's still left to play on Sunday. If this team wins, what does that mean? If this team loses, what does that mean? And so you go through different scenarios and put a few different brackets together based off of how the teams finish out. And so it's a really, really interesting process. When it comes to the league you're in or your team. So I'm in the SEC, obviously, and Alabama's my team. When Alabama gets talked about, I have to leave the room. I can't say anything. I can't say, man, be nice to the Tide or anything like that. I can't, none of that is allowed. And so when they were talking about the number 1 overall seed and the number 1 seeds, I was sitting outside in the hallway a decent amount because Alabama was part of that conversation. And then when I come back in, there's a doorbell, they ring the doorbell and you can come back in the room. And basically they'll give you a very high level recap of what was discussed and about Alabama. And then you just have to say, okay, thank you. That's it. You can't give commentary. You can't do anything like that. And they are really serious about it, which I think is great. That protects the integrity of what you're doing. So then when it comes to the Southeastern Conference and our teams, the only thing I can make a comment on is a fact. I cannot give opinion. I can't say, well, I saw Kentucky play and I really liked, when they were playing their zone defense, I really liked what I saw out of there compared to when they were playing man. I can't say that. Now I can say Kentucky, I saw Kentucky play and in this game and they won whatever to whatever. I could talk about stats from Kentucky that are there in front of us, but I can't give any opinion. And so it's the conference monitors for the Southeastern Conference, which there were 2 of them, a primary and a secondary, who will give more of the opinion about the SEC. And then they will break down just what their views are from their own experience watching the SEC, and then what they hear from the conference office in the process too. So it's putting those together. We spend a lot of time on data. I've got I've got 2 guys here. Brett McCracken is our primary guy, and then Calvezi, who they have a program that they've helped develop, which is really, really cool to help me be able to talk from all the analytics that are taking place, all the predictive analytics of what they think will happen analytics, and all the results-driven analytics that says, okay, well, these games have happened. Here's what happens to the analytics. One of the things we talk a lot about, and part of what people probably haven't thought about, and I hadn't before this, the reason why you have 12 different voices in the room, okay, the 12 different committee members, and then a couple of the NCAA staff members who their primary job is the NCAA men's basketball tournament. There are 12 different opinions of what takes place. What may be really important to me may not be quite as important to the next person. Okay. And they may have something that's more important to them that's not quite as important to me. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't take it all into account, because we do. But what I will tell you is I'm really into who'd you play, where'd you play them, and how'd you do. Okay. If the only, and I'm getting really in the weeds here, but you have quad 1 wins, quad 2 wins, quad 3 wins, and quad 4 wins. The more games you play in quad 1 and quad 2, that's going to help. That's going to be a very positive outlook. Sometimes you used to hear from coaches a long time ago, well, you get 20 wins, that's what you need to do. Well, we would review teams that would have 20 wins, but 13 of their 20 wins were in quad 3 or quad 4. And then that's not, that's not going to help you a ton to get you into the tournament. Okay. What's going to help get you into the tournament is having a good schedule, both non-conference and conference, and showing that you have the ability to compete against a lot of different teams and have success home and away, both of those things, and on neutral courts. And so all those things are part of it. And so what happens at times is, understandably, everybody's looking out of their lens, right? I'm talking fans, coaches, players, everybody's looking out of their lens. And what we're trying to do is look out of a neutral lens to the best of our ability. And we really are committed to that. And then look and say, okay, how do we have our opinions of what we think should take place? But then we also have 11 other voices in the room about what they think as well. And so, I know I've actually, some people may have noticed, I sent a tweet out on Sunday, but I really haven't been on Twitter at all. I've kind of just laid back from that for a little bit. And so I've been told that, I know there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that Auburn's playing in Birmingham. That's all part of bracketing. Okay. Bracketing, I don't have anything to do with. That's something where there's parameters and rules that we have as a men's basketball committee when it comes to a lot of things, including bracketing. And it's distance, it's what's available at the time that your team comes up. And I know sometimes there's a theory out there that, well, the committee's secretly in the back room putting together deals and saying, oh, let's put this team here, that'll be a really good matchup, and all those different things. It doesn't happen. It literally does not happen. And so when it came to Auburn getting bracketed to Birmingham, that's where it fit in the rotation at that time. And with the options that were available, that was the one that made the most sense. And so that's how they ended up there. And so anyways, understandably, everybody has different thoughts and people love talking about it. That's what makes this thing so special. It's kind of weird that I'm even sitting here talking about that as the AD at Alabama. But I thought the background would be helpful for people to understand. But it's a really interesting process. I'm honored to be a part of it. And I've got 3 more years after this year to still be a part of it. And it's something that I make sure I'm committed to and do in a way that represents our university, hopefully in a way that I should. And then at the same time too, I feel the responsibility for, when you're sitting in that room and you're talking about teams getting in or not getting in, and you're talking about what that means. And I sit there and I honestly think, it's like, we're talking about a bunch of 18 to 22-year-old young men who have worked their tail off their entire life to get in this position. I better take this seriously, because I'd want my son, or if the daughter, my daughter for the women's committee, I would want their committee members to say, man, we really took this seriously. We did what we thought was right. Not that everybody's going to agree with you, but we did what we thought was right. And so I think those, when you're those first 4 teams, that's really important. And a lot of that defines itself pretty well. It's those last teams that are getting in that are really, really challenging. And that you think, man, my vote is going to impact whether a young man has the opportunity to go play in the NCAA tournament and have a lifelong memory. And my vote will impact whether they don't. And so I take that very seriously and really feel the responsibility when it comes to that. And it's an honor to be a part of it. There's a really long answer to a short question.
Well, it's perfect for this show. Very well done on that. And of course, Alabama fans were thrilled for your work as the director of athletics for Alabama with the men's basketball team, specifically in extending Nate Oats a few weeks ago. What made that the right time to have the contract extension and the new raise for head coach Nate Oats?
Well, Nate's just done a great job since the day he got to town and has, really created a very strong culture within the program. I get to be around these guys. It's a really great group of young men. And I've been around this my entire life. Right. And I can tell you, you love all your teams, you love all your kids, you want to try to pour yourself into them on a daily basis. I tell young people when they come and see me who have interest in trying to get into college athletics, I said, this thing is a lifestyle. It's not a job. You need to understand that, the commitment that it takes to it. But I'll be the first to tell you that once in a while there's a team that you're like, okay, we're going to support them. We're going to do everything we can for them. But it's like, okay, it's not all bad when the season ends, right? Or when their time has come to an end. But I really love being around this group of young men, and I love being around Christy's team too. And it's fun to see a bunch of really, really good young men and young women, and how hard they work and just going out and trying to have a great experience in what they do here at the University of Alabama. So Nate and I've told him since the day he got here, when we hired him, I said, listen, we started him towards the bottom of the league because I just think philosophically, I want you to earn what you get over time. And I said, you do a good job. We're gonna make sure you understand how committed we are to you. And we did that in 20 after the strong season there, or actually during that strong season. And we've added another contract this year as well. And one of the things I've said to him is I said, I think it should be a two-way street. We're going to show you our commitment and what we're doing. And I want you to be able to do the same thing for us. And to his credit, he's been on board from the get-go with that. His family has really embraced and adopted being here in Tuscaloosa. And I told him when he came here, I said, Nate, you're not from here. I said, I was born out West. I said, the Alabama fan base is awesome. If they feel like you're working hard for them and caring about them, they'll go to the ends of the earth for you. And Regina and I have seen that for ourselves, and Nate and his family have seen that as well. And, we want this partnership to be here for a long, long time, and certainly thrilled at the job that he and his staff and the team are doing.
Absolutely. Wish them the best coming up in March Madness. And I know you haven't been on Twitter as much, but even your first tweet introducing Nate about 5 years ago around this time, it's still getting retweets and favorites all over the place. That's still one of the great moments for you in Alabama history, really.
Well, I remember, so I had Jeff Puritan with me, who's now the AD at Arkansas State. He and I were in a hotel room in Niagara Falls, and we were sharing this little tiny room, and we couldn't find a hotel room anywhere. So we ended up sharing this little hotel room with 2 beds in it. It's minus 93 degrees outside and the wind is howling. And they were talking about what a nice day it was compared to the couple months beforehand. And I was thinking, nobody's going to have a clue who Nate Oats is. And I'd been watching him for a while, but I'd never met him in person until the day before. And just felt like, man, he is doing something different that I thought was very ahead of the time and of the curve, so to speak. And so we almost had it done, and we had a whole marketing plan sheet put together that Jess Perret and some other folks had put together for us. And one of them was, I'm going to send a tweet out introducing the coach. Well, I forgot to, so Nate and I, when we left his house that night before, like at close to midnight, I forgot to take a picture with the two of us because my mind was on other things. And so I was like, oh crap, excuse my language. I don't have a picture. So I just went on the internet and searched Nate Oats and found one where he's, doing his fist pump and high intensity, excited look. And so that was the one I used. And I remember saying to Jeff right before I hit send on the tweet, like, I think 98% of our fan base are going to go, who the heck is this guy? But certainly we feel very fortunate. But I certainly felt like he was the right person for our program. And we had great support from Dr. Bell to make it happen. We had great support from our board of trustees. You know, I can't tell you, they let me do my job, and they've been very supportive with everything we do, and can't thank them enough for what they do to support us. And with that, Roger, I should make mention, tomorrow morning I'll be in Montgomery, and I'll be at the service for Jim Wilson, who was a longtime trustee for us, who passed away very quickly after a very sad situation for he and his family. And Dr. Bell and I know, and Chancellor St. John and the other trustees will be down in Montgomery tomorrow to pay our tributes to Jim. And he was the chair of our athletic committee. He was one of the first person I met when I came to Tuscaloosa, and had been a great friend to me, to Regina, to many people in our department, including Coach Saban, and so we're very sad at his passing, but he also made a tremendous impact on our university in so many ways, and we're going to miss him.
Very well said. Yeah, thoughts and prayers to his family. And as we move forward for Alabama athletics, one of the things you and I have been talking about on these monthly interviews for a long, long time has been name, image, and likeness. And since we last spoke, there's been a new collective announced called Yay Alabama. You're part of the announcement, as well as Coach Saban and all our coaches here at Alabama. I know you're excited for already the growth we've seen for Yay Alabama in the past few weeks.
Yeah. So our whole approach from the get-go with name, image, and likeness, we weren't trying to do shock and awe, so to speak. I think we've seen some of that. And there's a lot of things I don't know a whole lot about. One of my favorite sayings that I say is, the only thing I got figured out is I don't have it all figured out. And I mean that sincerely. I try to live that and be open-minded on a daily basis to grow and learn in what I do. And from name, image, and likeness, it's like, this is new waters, new territory. And I could tell early on that, you know, as much as it was just supposed to be about advertising opportunities and social media opportunities, the difference, because of college sports, is recruiting. And recruiting makes people extremely competitive with one another. And we've seen that in so many different ways. And so I didn't think NIL was going to be any different than that. So what we've tried to do is not necessarily be the first out of the gate. What we've tried to do is be very thoughtful and take time to navigate and understand the waters that we're going through right now. And so we had a organization that a gentleman named Larry Morris, who's a really good man and very good supporter of ours. He started a collective called High Tide Traditions, and that was a good thing to just get this thing going. And Larry's been a great friend of our program for a long time. So as this continued to evolve, there was going to be some other needs that were going to be there, and ability to be competitive from a recruiting standpoint, to be competitive, when you're managing your rosters and all those things, and maximizing legitimate NIL opportunities for our student athletes and our programs. And so a group came together and they started Yay Alabama, and we think we're very supportive. We're very appreciative of what Larry had done in the past. But at the same time too, we felt this was a good opportunity going forward. And so basically it's three buckets. There's a 501c3 that is out there. So for charitable opportunities, and then charitable responsibilities that our young people will have. And then, sorry, I'm getting a lot of text messages right now. And then we have the partnership that we have with Learfield. And Learfield's not out cutting deals. Learfield will be the conduit, which is Learfield, we call them Crimson Tide Sports Marketing. They'll be the conduit to work with a student athlete and their representative and see, are there brand opportunities to create name, image, and likeness agreements. And to me, that's as good a name, image, and likeness as there is out there. And then the third bucket under the umbrella of Yay Alabama will be a subscription model, where there's going to be opportunities for our fan base to get to know our kids better and see different things. And so those three buckets will allow our student athletes and our program, I think, to legitimately maximize their name, image, and likeness opportunities to make sure that when they're at Alabama, and the reality is, we tell this to our recruits all the time, the stage you have at Alabama is like none other. Okay, there are eyeballs from all over the country that are watching our program and what's taking place on a daily basis throughout the year. And so there should be as good NIL opportunities at Alabama as any place else, just because of the visibility that we have here and that our student athletes have here. So I think, Alabama's done a really nice job of balancing those three things. And I know I don't have the website memorized off the top of my head, but if you search for Alabama on Google, it'll come up and you'll be able to go directly to the website. I know I could say that. And the other thing is we've called it an NIL entity, and we did not call it a collective. We did that on purpose. We think this is a good, solid program that will represent our university, our athletic department, our student athletes in a way that is sustainable for the long haul, and that's what we're trying to get to.
Certainly excited about the growth of Yay Alabama, and we'll let you go on this. So we know it's going to be very busy over the next few weeks. So as we've already talked about with March Madness, we got to consider as well. Gymnastics has SEC championships coming up, NCAA regionals right around the corner. So many of the winter sports are wrapping up, spring sports just getting started. What's it going to be like for you over the next few weeks as we hope both basketball teams have a very deep run in March?
Yeah, so I actually go to Denver tomorrow after I go to Montgomery. I'll be there. So when you're on the committee, you don't get to go to your tournament, your conference tournament, and you don't get to go to your first and second round games 99% of the time because you have responsibilities at the different sites. So I will not be in Birmingham, unfortunately. Regina will be there, so she'll be representing our family. And then so I'll be in Denver for the first and second round as part of the committee. Then I'm assigned to Louisville after that. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, that's all I'll say, because obviously we got to take it one game at a time with our men's and women's programs. So first round I will not be in Birmingham. Second round I will not be in Birmingham if we're fortunate enough to advance to the second round, and I will not be in Connecticut with the women's team either. But I'll be watching them all, following them closely, talking to our coaches. Gymnastics, obviously, we've got SEC championship this Saturday in Duluth, Georgia. Swimming and diving, and really proud of the job that Ashley's doing with our gymnastics program. Swimming and diving, really love the job that Margot's doing as well. The women are up in Knoxville for the NCAA championship starting tomorrow. Then next week the men are in Minneapolis. Indoor track and field, they were out in Albuquerque kicking some tail. They finished both had top 10 finishes. My flight from Atlanta to Birmingham, a number of the kids from our team are on there, so I got to say hi to a few of them, which was great. And so there's a lot going on. Baseball, softball. Softball had a good win against Texas the other day. Our men's and women's golf programs are going. Baseball started the season 14-0. I think Brad always kind of undersells it a little bit, but I think we had a chance to have a good team this year with our baseball team and softball team. Rowing's up and going. And so it's a busy time here. Tennises are going. We had, Jenny Mines announced her retirement at the end of the season. And so that's, she's been a wonderful part of our department for so many years. And we hated to hear the news of her retirement, but also very happy for her. George, our men's tennis team, George Husak, our head coach, we beat number 16 Florida on the road on Sunday. We got Tennessee and Kentucky this weekend at home. So we'd love to see our fans who aren't, when you're not at the basketball games, come on out and support the men's tennis team too. So a lot going on. It's a busy time of year. And we just sure appreciate the incredible support by our fans. Y'all are the best. We love you, and can't thank you enough for all you do for us.
Well, same can be said for you. Thank you for all the great work you're doing for Alabama, and specifically on the NCAA selection committee as well. We really thank you for that great breakdown of what the last week and really the last year has been like for you. And congratulations on the job. Well done there. Just thank you for your time today. We look forward to catching up with you again. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide, Roger. Thanks, buddy.
The racing, the big one, the camping. It's all just bigger at Talladega.
One thing for sure, it's always thrilling.
NASCAR's biggest and baddest track is back. Get your tickets now at TalladagaSuperspeedway.com.
Our thanks to Greg Byrne for joining us. A great conversation on a variety of topics, especially his time on the men's basketball selection committee. And now we look forward to cheering on his team, the University of Alabama Crimson Tide, coming up tomorrow against Texas A&M Corpus Christi to start its run in the NCAA tournament. On Monday night, we were joined at Baumhower's Victory Grill by Nate Oats at the restaurant. And you can imagine it was a great atmosphere inside Baumhower's a day after Alabama won the SEC tournament championship. Looking ahead to the NCAA tournament, we had a fun conversation with Nate Oats. Here's a Hey Coach replay from Monday night with Nate Oats.
Well, nice to see the Crimson Tide play as well as they did in Nashville. What fueled that great run in the SEC tournament?
You know what? Our defense got back to where it needed to be. You know, we didn't shoot the ball great every game, but we said we needed to get our defense to a point where we could win games, and we didn't make shots. You know, we were able to win every game by double digits without ever really shooting the ball great. I mean, last game we came out making some shots early. We shot 36%, and that's decent. But that was the only, the other games we didn't shoot 36% from three, not from the field. But the other games we didn't particularly shoot it, great. I mean, we were, against Missouri we were less than 30%. Against Mississippi State we were 35%. But some guys struggled to shoot it a little bit. So I thought the defensive intensity was there. We rebounded it well. I don't think we got out-rebounded at all. I think we were even with Mississippi State, plus 14 on Missouri and plus 13 on Texas A&M. So, between the defense, the rebounding, and then we had different guys step up. Noah Gurley had a big tournament for us, and I can't say enough about, I've been saying, how great of a kid he is, what a leader he is, all this. He kept himself prepared, and when we needed him, he showed up. So I'm really happy for him. So, we got a great group of kids. I think the country's starting to see what a great group of kids we have. We've been playing some pretty high-level basketball. Yeah, I mean, Javon was great. Javon was great 2 years ago up in Nashville in the tournament. He's peaking again. He's big for us. He gives us another offensive scoring threat out there. Makes teams play us honest. He gets downhill. He creates shots for his teammates. I mean, he's one of the best point guards in the country, when he's on top of his game. So, I think he had, over the 3 games, he averaged about 5 assists. He was 2-to-1 assisted turnovers. So he, it wasn't just his scoring ability, his threat to score, but it was him getting in the paint, breaking down defenses, keeping the defense honest. So, I was, really happy for him, excited for the way that he played. I mean, the one game, I think, he only had 2 against Missouri, but, in the championship game against A&M, he scored 22. So, and he shot it well from 3. He's 4 of 8 from 3. He got downhill to the rim. So, in the Missouri game, when he didn't score that well, he had 7 assists and 1 turnover. So, he scored it in double digits the other 2 games. The one game he didn't score in double figures. He had 7 assists and 1 turnover. So he was able to impact the game all 3 of those games, whether it was scoring, getting in the paint, finding guys, making assists. And I really thought his defense on Wade Taylor in the championship game, I mean, Wade got us pretty good at their place. He had 28 on us down in College Station. I think Javon took that personal. He came out and did an unbelievable job guarding him. Wade didn't make his first field goal until about 9 minutes left in the game. So, and he scored. He ended up with 13, but he scored most of those late in the game when the game was well past decided. So I thought his defense, his offense, both were great this weekend. We need him to continue to play like that.
So what do you think of the atmosphere in Nashville, especially for the championship game with so much Crimson in the building like you wanted to see?
It was awesome. It was like a home game. I mean, I can't say enough about the people from Alabama that traveled up to Nashville to support us in that championship game. It felt like it was 75-80%. You could tell right out of the gate before the game even started. When they were going through the little light show before the game, the Roll Tide chant got going. I was waiting for the A&M chant, and if they tried, there wasn't enough people to get it going loud enough for me to hear it. So. The Roll Tide fans showed up. We need them to show up even stronger in Birmingham. We need that. Might have been 75% in Nashville. We need that to be about 95%, maybe 99% up in Birmingham. So we need everybody to find their way into that arena, get themselves a ticket and support us. You know, this will be the last 2 games we play in the state of Alabama with this team. It's been a historic team. We need to make a historic run now in the NCAA tournament.
And for the head coach, where do you stay focused? What are your eyes on?
You know what? I've got the edits that they've made. I'm not going to be able to watch multiple full games on all 4 teams, and we're really more focused on the 2 16 seeds right now. But I want to watch the edits they made, and maybe, you know, 1 game each. You know, I've seen a little bit on. I started with Corpus Christi, so as soon as I get out of here, I've got all the edits that they've come up with, and pretty much personnel edits, and they call them day 1 edits, the basic first edits of the main actions that the teams run are both on my computers. I'll watch those and then try to get like maybe a game or 2 of each team in.
So again, a lot of film for Coach Oats to watch. Before we let you go, again, just how much do you want to see Alabama fans in Birmingham cheering on the Crimson Tide Thursday and hopefully Saturday as well?
No, I mean, it's huge. I mean, you know, you saw how well we played in the championship game in Nashville. 8 days before that, we were in A&M without our fans. Didn't fare nearly as well. So let's get our fans in there. It's a big deal. Our players' energy's a lot better when they're in the crowd. Like, it's a big deal. So I'd love to see that place packed. You know, like, let's try to get it as close to a home game as we can, somewhere to like it was against Gonzaga. We're going to play a lot better on the defensive end than we did against Gonzaga. I promise you we'll be ready to go. So it'll be a fun weekend for you guys. It'll be good for us. We need your support. Let's make sure you're there.
And to wrap up this edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR, let's talk with the baseball head coach at Alabama, Brad Bohannon. Last night, a victory against South Alabama for the Crimson Tide. 4-0 was the final score as Will Hodo drove in 3 runs. He also had a 2-run home run. Luke Holman was strong with 9 strikeouts in his 7 shutout innings of work as well. So a lot of our conversation on Monday's Hey Coach focused on the South Alabama game, but also Coach Bohannon kind of gave us a rundown on his hitters, his pitchers so far this season, and what's coming up this weekend against the Florida Gators starting on Thursday in Gainesville. Here's our conversation with Brad Bohannon. Coach, last week we got the great honor on Monday from the SEC office that Colby Shelton was the SEC Freshman of the Week, your everyday third baseman, starting as just a freshman and off to a very good start with 10 home runs this year. At one point, had homered in 4 straight games. I know you were excited about his start to the season, but did you see this coming for him this early?
I don't think you can ever predict that a freshman's going to hit 10 home runs in the first 17 games. And, you know, Colby's a guy that we really liked in the recruiting process. He was an easy eval. You know, if you watch him play, he's just got a really clean, simple, repeatable swing. He's a physical kid for his age. And on top of all that, he's really mature, just a really diligent worker and handles the ups and downs really well, especially for a freshman. So I'm not surprised that he's doing well and he's off to a good start. But again, man, you can't predict 10 home runs in the first 17 college games.
It really has been good to see for Colby Shelton. This team has been hitting a lot of home runs so far this season, not just Colby, but Matt Cassetti, Drew Williamson, up and down the lineup, a lot of home runs, and that means a lot of good celebrations in the dugout. What was your reaction when you first saw the disco helmet and then the posing for pictures that the Crimson Tide have been doing? We hear Jim Jarvis was the ringleader of all this.
Yeah, I really didn't know anything about it, and I didn't even notice it. You know, I mean, after they come around third, I give them a high five, and they kind of do their deal in the dugout. I'm not really looking in the dugout. So the first time I found out about it was I saw pictures on social media. I saw a picture of Dom with it on, and I was just like, what in the world is this? And man, I hope we get to wear that thing out. I hope we hit so many home runs that we got to find a new, disco helmet by May. Hope we wear it out.
That's a really good plan. Certainly some great results, as we mentioned, for Colby Shelton. Looking at some of your position players, and you have a lot of depth for this season. Where are kind of some of the position battles? A lot of set starters in some spots, but where are you seeing specifically in the outfield and at second base, who's starting to emerge as some everyday players there?
Yeah, I mean, those are probably the 2 spots where you've seen us kind of go with matchups. And, it's pretty obvious. It's kind of hard to take a guy like Andrew Pinckney off the field because he can just help you win in so many ways. And, a guy like Andrew that, he can make a dive and catch. He can throw a runner out. even if he doesn't get a hit, he can beat out an infield single. He can beat out a double play ball, score from first on a double, steal a base. Jim Jarvis is another guy that's really hard to take off the field, right? Just being such an elite defender at a defense first position. But, Tommy Seidel and William Hammiter have gotten most of the time in left field. And really what you're trying to do is those guys they're a little different players, but you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the opposing pitcher and kind of map it up with the strengths and weaknesses of Tommy and Hammy, and kind of done the same thing at second base with Ed Johnson and Bryce Eblin. And Bryce has had a quad issue that he's been dealing with off and on the last couple of weeks, but those are some areas that it's kind of helping us to, every coach deals with this, even, Nate and Nate deals with this too. Like, your best offensive lineup is never exactly the same as your best defensive lineup. And maybe when you have a guy like Ben Hess that strikes a lot of people out, you can be a little more aggressive at playing your best offense because there just aren't as many balls put in play. Where a guy like Jacob McNary throws a ton of strikes, doesn't get as much swing and miss, there's going to be more pressure on the defense when he pitches. Then maybe you're a little more prone to play the defense. So those are kind of all the variables that you look at, as you're putting the lineup together, and it's not as black and white or simple as you may think.
And then how about at the catcher position? Because we've seen Matt Cassetti produce, we've seen Dom Temez produce both with the bat and receiving this pitching staff. Do you like the rotation those guys have had? Because I know going into the year, that was something you wanted, was good depth at catcher.
Yeah, that's the most difficult position to recruit. If you find a catcher that, has like SEC level, strength and physicality, and they can catch the stuff that, that we have in this league, the mid 90s, and they can do something offensively. There just aren't many of those guys. And a lot of those guys get paid out of high school. So, that's a position that we've never had a lot of depth in my time here. And I feel like we have two of the best 5 catchers in the league, which means you get two of the best, 20 or 25 in the country. Mac and Dom are really, really good players. I'm very thankful to have both of them. And it's really a good feeling knowing that, if one of those guys go down, that you're going to be okay at that position and still be good at that position. So, they both have done a good job of swinging the bat. I think having each other has helped both of them be better versions of themselves, as far as, not even like, pressing or pushing each other just as much as keeping each other fresh, because that's a pretty taxing position. I thought last year Dom's offensive numbers kind of dropped off at the back end of the year just because we did catch him, 50 games or whatever. So it's a strength of our club. And both of those guys have gotten some DH opportunities when they haven't been catching. Will Hodo has really been swinging the bat well the last week and a half. So, that's another position, the DH spot of, do you play the other outfielder? Do you play the other, second baseman, or do you play the other catcher, or do you play Will Hodo? Those guys have all kind of been performing well. So you just kind of match up their strengths and weaknesses to the opposing pitcher. And, it's been a good deal for us.
Coach, we've talked about your hitters. Now let's talk about the pitchers for a moment. 4 starts for your weekend rotation. How have you liked what Grayson hit, along with Ben Hess and Jacob McNary, have given you to start games on the weekend?
Well, all those guys have had some good outings, and one or two that haven't been as good as the others. So, Ben Hess has been outstanding. He's, I think clearly been our best guy to this point. And, Grayson has done some good things. He hasn't thrown the ball, hasn't commanded the ball as well as what we saw in the fall. And I just like to see him pitch deeper in the game. We just, at the front end of the game, you need somebody that's going to be able to give you 5-6 innings. And, he's pitching through some traffic and deep in the count. So he's got to be a little more efficient. And Jacob hasn't been as sharp as he was last year. He needs to take a step forward as well. He's done a good job of pounding the strike zone, but he's just got to execute pitches at a higher level and stay off the barrel a little bit more. So, those guys have all done some good things, but we need all 3 of them to take a step forward. And that's an area where, I think you're going to see some changes here over the next week or two. Luke Coleman's been throwing the ball outstanding. We're going to start him tomorrow night against South Al, and if he's anything like he was at Sanford, then we're going to have to use him on the weekends in some role. And then, like I said, Garrett McMillan's going to be back in the mix soon as well. So, all those guys are doing some good things, but we need them all to take a step forward.
What have you learned about your bullpen through 17 games?
Well, we got some really good arm talent back there. Alton Davis, Riley Quick, Cade Woods are three guys in their first year pitching here that are running the ball up to 95, 96. And, they've shown flashes of being, really high end, high level, and they've all had outings where they were spraying it a little bit. And that's pretty typical of young guys with velocity and arm talent. Zane Probst has probably been the most consistent. And what do you know is it's his third year of college and was an all-star up in the Cape Cod League last year. But Zane's done a good job of coming in and managing some innings and throwing a really good breaking ball for a strike consistently. And Braylon Myers has probably just been the most dependable. You just know exactly what you're going to get out of Braylon. He's going to come in and be 90, 91 and be able to throw the ball on the third of the plate and throw that good breaking ball for a strike at will. So those are the guys that have probably stood out the most to this point. Hagen Banks is another guy that is extremely dependable, just comes in and pounds a strike zone. And, we've talked about, moving him into a starting role as well. So, I like our options. I like the talent that we have. And just like I would say about the offensive lineup, we need to, those guys are doing some good things and they have talent. We need them to show some more consistency and take some steps forward as we get into league play.
And it is spring break for your players, so you get to stay on the road after the game is complete in Mobile. Make your way to Gainesville, Florida to start SEC baseball Thursday through Saturday against the Gators. We know Kevin O'Sullivan has a really talented roster. It seems like the top batting numbers in the league are either Florida or Alabama, both as a team and individually. So you talk about a start to SEC play. It's going to be a great one coming up on Thursday for the Crimson Tide.
We're certainly not easing into it. Holy cow. LSU's gotten all the hype, all the scouts say that it's the best team in the history of college baseball that they've ever seen. I turn on the tape and I watch Florida and I'm like, they got to be the best team in the country. I mean, you're talking about three starting pitchers that are all going to run the ball up to 97, 98 miles an hour. There are three starters that are going to be top 50 picks in the draft. Really athletic defense and a really deep, scary lineup. I mean, they're just an elite team. The one thing they haven't been great at closing games out. So our starters are going to have to do a good job of matching their starters and keep us within a couple runs and try to win some games late. So it will be a tremendous challenge. I think it'll be a great barometer for us, for our kids to see how we stack up to arguably the best team in the country. And we're excited for it.
Best of luck to Brad Bohannon as the Crimson Tide will start SEC play coming up on Thursday against the Florida Gators, and that's just part of a very busy weekend for Crimson Tide athletics here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. So with that in mind, it is time to take a look at our weekend update brought to you by Wickles Pickles. They are wickedly delicious. We have the relish with us today. We always have the pickle chips as well. So many great products available at WicklesPickles.com. Let's see what's coming up on the Wickles Weekend Update. Well, tomorrow the big dance begins for Alabama men's basketball as the Crimson Tide will be taking the airwaves at 12:45 across our radio network and the Varsity Network app, getting set for Alabama against Texas A&M. Corpus Christi tipping off at 1:45 from Birmingham at Legacy Arena. Also, later in the day, the baseball team, as we mentioned, will start play at Florida. Our radio coverage will begin at 5:55 for that ball game at 6 p.m. against the Florida Gators. Then on Friday, the baseball team will be the only team in action taking on the Gators in Game 2 at 5:30, and then it's a very, very busy day on Saturday. Really, the Crimson Tide Eclipse is coming up as we have nearly everybody in action at the same time. Let's start with the baseball team. They'll be wrapping up the series against Florida at 3 p.m., and then softball will start its SEC series against the Arkansas Razorbacks at 4:30 on Saturday. Also at 4:30, women's basketball in the NCAA tournament against Baylor, and then at some point, should Alabama win tomorrow against Corpus Christi, Alabama will play its second round game. We don't have a time for that until Friday, so just check back to the Crimson Tide Sports Network on social media for the latest details on the men's basketball game. And even though we don't have a broadcast for it, best of luck to gymnastics that night in the SEC championships. Then on Sunday, it'll be the softball team against Arkansas, and if Alabama women's basketball wins on Saturday, the Crimson Tide would play at some point on Monday, likely against the number 2 seed Connecticut Huskies. So again, more information available, rolltide.com for that. And Monday's going to be busy anyway, as we're going to have softball wrapping up its series at 6 p.m. against Arkansas. At the same time, we will have Hey Coach from Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. So the Wickles weekend update as packed as it could be, especially on Saturday with everything coming up for Alabama. Don't miss out on NASCAR's much-anticipated return to Talladega Superspeedway on April 23rd. Between the iconic Talladega camping and the unparalleled access of the Talladega Garage experience, there is something for everyone to enjoy. Bring your whole family and make memories that will last a lifetime. Lock in your tickets today at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. And that's going to wrap up this special Wednesday edition of Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. We appreciate all of you joining us a day early. We just wanted to make sure we were out of the way for everything that's coming up tomorrow for Alabama men's basketball in the NCAA tournament. We thank Nate Oats and Brad Bohannon for their appearances earlier in the week on Hey Coach, and especially big thank you to the Director of Athletics here at Alabama, Greg Byrne, for his insights and his monthly conversation with all of us here on the Crimson Tide Sports Network. Thanks to video producer Ethan Carabin for putting this show together, and thanks to all of you for watching. For everybody at the Crimson Tide Sports Network, this is Roger Hoover saying enjoy March Madness. It starts tomorrow for Alabama against Texas A&M Corpus Christi. We'll see you right back here next week for Crimson Drive, driven by NASCAR. Roll Tide, everyone.